Now, thousands of Venezuelans have gone into hiding as the socialist government cracks down on dissent in the wake of a disputed election. President Nicolas Maduro was declared the winner of July's vote, but his victory claim is rejected by the US, the European Parliament and several Latin American nations. Many other Venezuelans have simply left the country. DW spoke to some of those in exile in Spain.
This is Perkins Rocha, a lawyer for the Venezuelan opposition. He was arrested by unidentified men at the end of August. Since then, his son Santiago Rocha, who lives in Spain, hasn't heard from him.
Witnesses told us they grabbed him by the neck and dragged him across the pavement to one of the vehicles they were in. They put him in the car and drove away. He's been charged with terrorism, treason, incitement to hatred, conspiracy. 5 charges, which is literally everything my dad is not.
Despite the uncertainty and fear, Santiago Rocha stays optimistic. He says his father will be released sooner or later. Perkins Rocha is one of more than 2,000 opponents of the government who have been arrested since July's election. Political persecution in Venezuela has intensified since the government-controlled Electoral Council declared Nicolas Maduro the winner. In the meantime, the EU Parliament and other countries have recognized Edmundo González as the democratically elected president. Together with opposition leader María Corina Machado, he contests the results. He's now in Spain, where he's been given political asylum. Spain is home to hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans who have left because of the political and economic crisis. Raimundo Dalto left too. He runs a bar in Madrid and sees strong parallels between the fate of Edmundo González and other Venezuelans.
He is a victim, just like the more than 8 million Venezuelans who have had to leave for one reason or another. He's another victim. He has not been able to remain in his country safely, to be able to take office, because we have been mocked by the regime.
Many people hope Edmundo González will be sworn in January. Among them, Juan Pablo García, a member of the inner circle of the Venezuelan opposition, is sure President Maduro's time's up. Anything else would provoke a revolution, he says.
In the face of international and national pressure, there will be no other option than to begin a peaceful transition in the next few hours, the next few days, which will end with the swearing-in of González Urrutia. There's no way for them to evade what is happening in Venezuela.
Analysts, however, remain cautious. Venezuela has strong international allies such as China and Russia, and even if González was sworn in, the crisis in Venezuela would be far from over.
The Maduro regime is very attached to power. The attempt of other Latin American countries to negotiate through Brazil's President Lula or Colombia's Petro could be the beginning of a solution. But at this moment they are very far from being translated into anything concrete. And if Edmundo González becomes president, the situation will be so complicated that getting out of the hole in which Venezuela currently finds itself will require a titanic effort.
But if that effort means the release of the political prisoners and a change of direction for the country, for most Venezuelans, it would be a true victory.
Let's bring in DW correspondent Oscar Schlenker, who's in Caracas. Oscar, great to see you. It's been 2 months since the disputed election, and Edmundo González Urrutia is now in exile in Madrid. Is much known about a plan for him to return and attempt to take office?
Well, as we saw, the opposition's goal is to have Edmundo González proclaimed president on January 10th in Venezuela. But there are no known plans on how he will return to Venezuela. And as of now, it would be impossible. Leaving Venezuela has led to a number of political scandals in Spain and many disputes on how and who coerced Edmundo González to leave the country after signing a document in Venezuela's Spanish embassy. But being outside Venezuela has allowed Edmundo González to meet with international supporters and speak out much more, because here in Venezuela, he was in hiding. So strengthening international support and being able to condemn and criticize Maduro from an international stage is what the opposition is aiming to achieve for now with Edmundo González in exile.
Oscar, after the election, traditional Nicolas Maduro allies in Latin America called for more transparency in the vote count. How much support does he have to continue governing at this point?
Well, Maduro's administration still has the support of Russia, China, and Iran. Here in the region, Nicaragua, Bolivia, Honduras, and Cuba are still supporting Maduro. A number of African nations have also congratulated Maduro on being proclaimed the winner of these elections. So even though Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia haven't conceded yet, they could later if they see there is no turning back on Maduro's claim to power. We have seen Maduro much more isolated in the past, and he has been able to ride the wave with the support of Russia and China. As long as those alliances are strong, Maduro feels confident enough to grasp onto power despite all other international disputes against him.
Right, let's talk about the lives of ordinary Venezuelans. How is this political crisis affecting them?
Well, many people feel frustrated and disillusioned because they thought this was a real chance at democratic change in Venezuela. Many want to keep on resisting, but there is also fear because repression from security forces has been brutal, more so than in other years, something that has been condemned by the UN even. So people are afraid now, and another concern is how all this will affect the economy. We have seen the new U.S. sanctions towards Venezuelan individuals associated with Maduro. And that's the first step before we might see some general sanctions or other effects. This instability and fear could hinder Venezuela's fragile economy like we've seen in the past. We've seen almost 8 million Venezuelans leave the country, making it the largest migration in the region. And we're expecting that number to grow and at a much faster rate in the coming year.
Thanks, Oscar. DW's Oscar Schlenker in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas.